Hi everyone, welcome to this beauty tag video. I have never started a beauty tag before. This will be my first one and I'm very excited about it. If you aren't familiar with tag videos, they are basically a series of questions on a certain topic that someone provides the answers to, and then you kind of pass it along for other creators to answer the same questions and you get to see what the different answers are. I hope that's a decent way to explain what the tag videos are. So what got me thinking about this is that this morning I received a PR package, and that's semi-regular occurrence, and it was for some toothpaste and toothbrushes. And I kind of thought to myself, I've been receiving a lot more skincare type of non-makeup type of boxes lately, and I've been loving it. I've been really liking focusing on more things that are not purely makeup, and that is a lot due to quarantine, due to isolating in place. That then got me thinking, our lives have obviously changed a lot because of world events, and I thought it would be fun to kind of think about the way our beauty routines have changed for the good, for the maybe not so good, given our situations currently. So these are a series of questions that I came up with. Please feel free to tag whoever you want to. Feel free to create your own video with your own answers to these questions. I have 5 questions that I have come up with, and if you want to do this and even add questions of your own to add on to the beauty tag, then feel free. So I'm gonna hashtag this and call this the beauty quarantine tag or beauty quarantine tag. Now, for the purpose of convenience, I'm calling it the beauty quarantine tag, but obviously we're not actually in quarantine. That's just kind of a word people are using. It's more staying in place, social distancing, etc. Now, this morning I created my list of questions and thought about my own answers and kind of got things together that I thought would be relevant to the answers that I'm going to give you. And I wanted to make sure that this hadn't actually already been done before. Since we've been in quarantine for many months now, I thought to myself, there's probably a really good chance that there are other people who have done this. And so I wanted to check and thought maybe I'll just do it myself and answer their same questions. There's literally only one video that I was able to find on YouTube that said quarantine beauty tag, and that was by a creator called Agape Love Girl. And I watched the video. It seemed like there was only one question actually that was beauty related, 1 or 2 questions maybe that was beauty related, whereas this tag for me, I want to be purely beauty related. So I did borrow one question from her that I thought was interesting and I hadn't thought about. So I want to give credit to Agape Love Girl for that one question, and I'll point out to you which one it is when I get to it in this tag. But otherwise, I think this is the first quarantine beauty tag that's out there. And if it's not, please feel free to let me know. And like I said, if you have any other questions that you think would be interesting for this tag, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or when you do it yourself to add on that question. All right, so thank you for being a subscriber and hitting that red subscribe button. I'll also put the Instagram username in the upper left-hand corner for you to go follow if you aren't already. And if you want to know what is on my cheeks, and the exact same product is actually on my lips, it is one of the NYX Sweet Cheeks Soft Tints. That is the latest video that is up on my channel, so I'll link that in the upper right hand corner for you so you can see swatches of all of the colors that are in the line. And on top of that, I have the latest Kaleidos lip gloss in the shade Hypnotize. All right, let's get into what the questions are for this beauty quarantine tag. All right, question number 1 is, what are 3 products that you use the least compared to how often you use them before stay in place started? Basically, what are 3 products that you use less now? For me, the number 1 product that I used to use on a pretty near daily basis that I almost never wear now is liquid foundation. I think at the very beginning of shelter in place, I was still using it, but the transfer onto the mask, it just didn't seem worth it. I also feel like the bare visual of my skin, like my naked skin on my face, has really improved, or maybe I've just gotten really used to it. And so I feel more comfortable not having to cover my whole face in liquid foundation. The second least product compared to before stay in place is lipstick. I think that's going to be pretty common for people. Now, obviously in videos, I'm wearing liquid foundation, I'm doing pretty much a whole face, but I pretty much do not do a whole face unless it is for the purpose of a video nowadays. Lipstick transfers onto, again, the mask, and even if it didn't transfer, no one gets to really see it because it is being covered by the mask. So I think for most people, we really aren't using especially our really bright, vibrant lipsticks, or really any sort of lip product that easily transfers. I know a lot of people are looking into more liquid lipsticks or stains that do not transfer, but in terms of just standard lip products, not using them really anymore. And the third product that I am using least is highlighter. So I will still usually, or maybe half the time, maybe more than half the time, still put some sort of cheek color. I think a lot of the time now I'm using more of like a bronzer type of shade as opposed to a bright blush shade, but I usually will put some sort of color on my cheeks. But because of the placement of the mask, what do you call them? The mask, these things, the things that go around your ears. I don't know why the name for it is escaping my mind right now, but because those cover and follow the line of pretty much where your cheekbones are, where your highlighter would be, I just haven't really seen the purpose of doing that. A, will transfer off, and B, people won't really see it. Question number 2 is pretty much the flip side of that, which is what are the 3 products that you are using the most compared to how frequently you use them before stay in place started. For me, the number 1 thing is, of course, sunscreen. Now, I'm someone who has used sunscreen every single day, rain or shine, clouds or not. Even if I'm just staying in all day or going outside, I use sunscreen every single day. Even despite that, I have been using a ton more sunscreen because there are so many more days where I just don't wear makeup at all, or I wear very minimal makeup. And there are a lot more days where I am at home and I'm staying inside. That has given me the opportunity to do something that I wish I could do even when I am wearing makeup, even when I am having a full face. And that is to reapply my sunscreen like I should be every 2 to 3 hours. So because there's so many days where I don't wear makeup, period, and so many days where I am at home and have access to the sunscreen that I apply at the beginning of the morning, I have been reapplying that on top of my skin every few hours. On top of that, I've also been using a lot more sunscreen lately because even when I do have makeup on, what I have started to do is to invest in powder sunscreen products that I can dust on top of to get a little bit of a renewed SPF protection even when I have makeup underneath. And I actually did an entire video on that topic, which is how do you reapply your sunscreen when you've already put a full face of makeup on. I will link that in the upper right hand corner for you to go check out. I not only talk about how to solve the issue, I also talk about different categories of solutions to that issue, and then I give you specific products that I recommend that I've tested out and have worked well for me. The second most common product that I now use that I didn't before stay in place is powder foundation. That kind of goes hand in hand with the fact that I almost never wear liquid foundation anymore. So when I do go out and I want to have that coverage, I have used powder foundation, something that I just I haven't loved before. And the one that in particular I have in my rotation that I've been using is Estee Lauder's, I think it's their Double Wear powder foundation. And it's good. I don't think that if I were doing a video of my top powder foundations that I would put it in that list necessarily. Although, like I said, I have never really been a huge fan of powder foundations, or at least not in the last 5 years plus. So I don't generally use that kind of product typically until now anyway. So it's not that I happen to love powder foundations or even that one specifically. It's just that is something that I have been using because it's easy. It will still transfer, but it doesn't have so much of a transfer or so much of a heaviness the way a liquid foundation does, if that makes sense. And the third product that I have been just slathering on much more than usual are things like lip balms. So this Fresh Sugar Lemon Hydrating Lip Balm I've had near my bedside for the past couple of months. I love this. It is so nourishing. It stays on my lips. It's still there in the morning, keeping them moisturized and kind of just softened. That's how much I have used up. And another one that I mentioned in a couple months ago's What's New in Beauty video is this one by Clarins, their Hydra Essential Moisturizing Replenishing Lip Balm. I've, for the same reasons, really loved this one. And I was so lucky that just in time, Fresh was kind enough to send along another one of their sugar hydrating lip balms. I think they may have come out with a line of new scents. This one is the Lime Mint scent, and that's what the balm looks like. Oh my gosh. It smells heavenly and divine. Fresh has done such a good job with the fragrances in these. I'm not even usually a huge I'm not usually a huge fan of lemon scented things, but I really have enjoyed the way this one smells. It smells like a lemon bar as opposed to like a true, authentic, fresh squeezed lemon. It has more of that like cakey scent to it, and I am so looking forward to digging into this one as soon as I've used up the other one. So yeah, because this part of my face is usually covered up, but I still want to keep things moisturized, and especially since you're breathing in and out that same area, I want to keep the lips protected. So using balms, and if I do want some color for some reason, using just a liquid stain type of product. That's really what I've been doing for my lips. Question number 3. What new beauty related activity have you started to do or are doing much more frequently now that quarantine is in place or stay in place is in place? An alternative question, or you can make an additional question if you want to, would be what beauty related activity have you stopped doing because of stay in place? I think obviously for most people we know that we're wearing less makeup, but anything more specific than that I'd be curious to know too. For me, I'm going to choose 2 activities that I have started to do that I wasn't doing before stay in place. The first one was chemical peels. So of course during a few days I went down some rabbit hole about doing DIY chemical peels. I have dabbled with the idea of paying for chemical peels, but because those places are not open now, I think that's what started me down a rabbit hole of, is this something I can do myself at home? Now, a huge caveat to these are that the safest thing is to have a professional do these things. So if you decide to do a chemical peel at home, that is completely at your own risk. You need to do as much research as possible. You need to be very careful. But that is a risk that I decided to take for myself, I think on a pretty mild level, because what I started with is a salicylic acid peel, which compared to other chemical peels that you can do is pretty mild. It was really to try to clear up just, random breakouts that I would have, especially with wearing a mask and things like that, and to try to clear up the blackheads that I have always had on my nose. I would say there was a little bit of a learning curve, but it was somewhat successful. I won't get too into the actual substance of the chemical peel and how it went. If you're curious about that, let me know and maybe I'll make a separate video on that. But that is an activity that I have started to do because of stay in place, and I will think about probably doing other types of chemical peels myself at home. I don't want to do more serious ones like the glycolic acid peels, and I think they're called TCA peels, because those result in a lot more noticeable peeling. But maybe in the fall and in the winter, I will do those because there won't be such strong sun exposure. I don't want to do those peels in the summertime because I am spending a lot of time, when I do go outside, in strong sun rays, I guess you would say. So I don't want to do that at this point, but once days come around with less strong sun, I will consider doing that. And stay in place is kind of a nice time to do that, because if you're gonna be staying at home for the most part and not really seeing anyone for several days on end, that's the perfect time to have the experience and deal with the results of the really kind of dramatic peeling that you see with a lot of peels, and not have to kind of have the uncomfortableness of looking strange, I guess, in public with the very noticeable peeling. With my salicylic acid peel, I had some mild peeling that I even noted for you in several of my videos, but it wasn't extreme. And the second activity that I did as a result of stay in place was decluttering. A lot of you have watched the videos in my decluttering series. I will link the playlist for you up in the right-hand corner for you to binge watch if you want to, if you haven't seen them. I only have, and it's been a couple months since I did one, I do still have foundations that I need to declutter, I think brow products that I need to declutter, and I don't know, I'm sure I could find something else to declutter, but minus those couple or few categories, I decluttered most of my makeup collection, which has really brought me a lot of satisfaction and joy. So if you have been thinking about paring down your collection, I would encourage you to do it. You know, now is a great time when you're at home anyway, to think about what it is that actually really brings you joy, if that's the way you want to say it, and to get rid of the stuff that doesn't. All right, question number 4 is, what beauty-related thing, whether that's a product, whether that's an activity, has quarantine made you really appreciate more? For me, that has been going barefaced and practicing the faintest shade of minimalism, or just minimizing what I need or what I want. I have grown to love not putting any makeup on. Even though I love makeup, I have really appreciated the days where I just do my skincare, I put on my sun protection, and that's kind of it. I've grown more used to and appreciative of my own skin, of the way that my face looks without a bunch of makeup on it. Even though even pre-quarantine, I was someone who really didn't, you know, put a ton of makeup on or do super dramatic eye looks. Makeup is something that I, like I said, would wear pretty much on a daily basis, but I have really, really grown to like not going through those steps, or at least not feeling obligated. Maybe that's what I should phrase it more as, is really appreciating not feeling like I need to do those things. Not that you actually need to do those things. If you are someone who doesn't want to wear makeup any day of your life, that's absolutely your choice. But for me, not having that expectation or feeling of expectation that I need to wear any makeup at all. And if I do wear makeup, wearing a pretty minimal amount of it. And on the lines of minimalism, I have really thought about all of the things and grown to appreciate all of the launches and new products and things that I don't need. And that kind of comes in two forms. One is the fact that when Stay in Place started, a lot of companies weren't launching new collections or products, or if they had collections that were going to launch, delaying those. And that was sort of a forced way of getting used to not being bombarded so often and so plentifully with new things. And then the second shade of that is when companies started to, and are now more on a more normal basis, releasing a lot more products, just realizing that there's so much stuff that you don't need. And that's part of why I even started making anti-haul videos, and I've made 2 so far, and just seeing all of the stuff that comes out that is not necessary, not even, you know, attractive, or that you just don't want to buy or need to buy. And the 5th and last question is the one that I borrowed from Agape Love Girl, and her question was, what channels are you binge watching now that you have been home so often? Which is not something that I had thought about, and I think is a really cool question. And I'm going to give you 3 of the channels that I hadn't watched before quarantine started that I have watched so much, whether that's just consistently watching the videos those channels have released, or just going back and binge watching so many of the videos. Now, these 3 channels are not beauty related at all. So if that's what you're looking for, I'm sorry. I don't think that my consumption of beauty content on YouTube has increased as a result of staying in place. The first channel of the 3 is a channel called Soft White Underbelly. It's not a feel-good channel. It's actually quite... It's a channel where a professional photographer, he started it, and he brings people into his studio and interviews them. These people are people who, for the most part, I mean, the people like mobsters, sometimes maybe are not as marginalized, but for the most part, he is featuring and talking to and interviewing people who are really on the marginalized part of society, people who are poor, people who, their lives are just very tough. And they're beautifully shot, which is not surprising given that he has that eye as a professional photographer, but I just really appreciate someone in the YouTube community dedicating an entire channel, and he does so many videos. I mean, he's releasing them very, very often. There's hundreds of videos with hundreds of people who otherwise we pretty much ignore in society. People who make us maybe feel uncomfortable on the street, who we don't really want to interact with, who we don't take the time to interact with, and who for the most part we just try to, we don't give care to those people because their situation makes us feel uncomfortable, or because those are not realities in our lives that we face. So I really appreciate that. I think that his interviews of these people bring to the surface a lot of social issues that have existed for decades and will continue to exist. It's just the nature of society, at least in America, where you have very distinct classes, very poor people, people who just on a daily basis struggle to get by. So it's not by any means maybe uplifting in terms of content, but it's important content. And I appreciate the work that he's doing. And it's always really fascinating to hear from the people themselves who are experiencing these things and live these lives and face these struggles on a daily basis, to hear it from their mouth what they go through. Okay, on a slightly more bright note, I guess, is a channel that I started watching very recently, but literally have binge watched dozens of his videos, and that is D'Angelo Wallace. The reason why I love his content is foremost because he is so sharp, so intelligent. And that's something that I love listening to people who their intelligence just oozes out of every sentence that comes out of their mouth. On top of that, of course, he is witty. That's part of his kind of sharpness and the banter that comes across. Very clever, the way he communicates things and his opinions. And even if you don't agree with the substance of his opinions, you cannot deny that he expresses himself in such a smart and substantiated, and he just backs himself up with not only logic, but facts, evidence, whatever it is he's gathering. So it's usually more than just his opinion. There's a lot of substance behind whatever his stance is or his opinion is. And the third thing is obviously he's talking about a lot of current things. He talks a lot about other creators in the YouTube space and some issues that he sees or things that he disagrees with. I think recently he has risen to more popularity because of foolishness that has been occurring actually for a long time, but is being brought to light recently. But his content even before those kinds of videos are brilliant. The third channel that I have been binge watching is called That Chapter. Now, actually, it took me a little while to get used to the creator's style of talking. I think the simplest way to describe the content is true crime content. So he will pick a case or he'll pick a murder and he'll give you the whole background. He'll explain to you how the court case or the trial unfolded, etc. And oftentimes he'll talk about the evidence and if there's problems with evidence or different opinions about what the evidence does or doesn't show. But there's extremely dry humor that the creator, that's his style, is like very, very, very deadpan kind of dry humor that he sort of unexpectedly will disperse in in what he's saying, like in the middle of giving you the facts of what happened, and then he'll make a joke, and it's so deadpan that you're like, whoa, I didn't expect that. But I appreciate that humor, and you know, I think a lot of people love true crime, that genre, so it's entertaining in that aspect too. Okay, there is the quarantine beauty tag. Please feel free, like I said, to do it yourself, to tag creators that you would like to see where you would like to see their answers to these. And if I can think of some creators that I would like to see answer these questions, I will tag them in the comment section below too. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope that you liked it and it was entertaining. If it was, please give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one.